What's up, folks? Thanks for joining me again. We're going to jump back into John. We're going to be in chapter 2 today, and let's see what God has to show us today. John 2 says, On the third day there was a wedding in Cana of Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there. Now both Jesus and his disciples were invited to the wedding. And when they ran out of wine, the mother of Jesus said to him, They have no wine. Jesus said to her, Woman, what does your concern have to do with me? My hour has not yet come. His mother said to the servants, Whatever he says to you, do it. So Jesus and them, that they're at a wedding. His mom's at this wedding. Doesn't really give us a whole lot of detail, but apparently she was involved in the wedding, because when they run out of wine, she went to Jesus. She said, Hey, Jesus, all the wine's gone. Pretty much, hey, the party is over. And Jesus kind of looks at her, and it sounds rude, but he's like, Woman, what does your concern have to do with me? He says, what's this got to do with me? This ain't my party. I'm just here. But just like a mom, she looks at the servant and says, Hey, you just do what he says. Do whatever Jesus tells you to do. And that reminds me of moms. That's kind of how moms are. Even though Jesus was Jesus was the Son of God, it was her son, and she's like, Hey, you need to do this for your mother. And Jesus even said right here, he said, my hour has not yet come, but it's like the mama says, oh yes, it has. It's time to do your thing, Jesus. So she told the servants, do whatever he says. It says, Now there were set there 6 water pots of stone, according to the manner of purification of the Jews, containing 20 or 30 gallons apiece. Jesus said to them, Fill the water pots with water, and they filled them up to the brim. And he said to them, Draw some out now and take it to the master of the feast, and they took it. When the master of the feast had tasted the water that was made wine, and did not know where it came from, but the servants who had drawn the water knew, the master of the feast called the bridegroom. And he said to him, Every man at the beginning sets out the good wine, and when the guests have well drunk, then the inferior. You have kept the good wine until now. So Jesus, he told them to fill those water jars up to the brim. Well, they did it, and then he says, Draw water, take it to the master of the feast. Now, he's the guy over everything. Well, when he tasted it, this water had turned into wine, and not only was it wine, it was the best wine. He says usually the best wine's given at the beginning, and then, as the party went, people's taste have dulled, that they start drinking the inferior. But he says, you kept the good wine until now. And Jesus saves the party. But when you really get to looking at this, wine in the Bible represents the blood of Jesus. Jesus took something natural, the water, and he kind of, not only did he transform it in wine, but it's the best wine. That would be wine that had to age for years. In that instance, he did some amazing stuff. Some people look at this and think it was just some small miracle, but he actually, he transcended the boundaries of time by making it the good wine, as well as changing the molecular structure of that water into the wine. And again, he took something natural and made something supernatural out of it. By the way, like I said earlier, the wine represents his blood. It is his blood that has cleaned the natural man and allowed the Spirit to come in to make us supernatural. This first miracle at this wedding was really a picture of what Jesus was going to do. He was going to take the natural state of man, and through his blood, he was going to bring us into the supernatural. So this wasn't some small thing he did right here. And he said, my time hadn't come, but hey, this started his time. His mom, that's kind of awesome. Mothers are something amazing. They're something special, and Mary was too. And even though Jesus, he was on his time frame, God's plan was for mom to start this thing. And that should be in our lives as well. Mothers play a significant role in raising us and really setting us on the path we're supposed to be. Now, I know it was God's plan, God's path, but I love how he used Mary to really kick this thing off. And we really need to be thankful for our mothers. I know it, and now we live in a fallen world. You may not have the best mother, but you need to know they're the ones that gave you life, and you should respect them just for that and that journey. If you had one of those good mothers that set you up on a good path, you should really be thankful for them. They set you up for life. All right, let's keep going. It says this beginning of signs Jesus did in Cana of Galilee. So this was the beginning right here, the beginning of signs. This is one of his first miracles he did. It says, and it manifested his glory, and his disciples believed in him. After this, he went down to Capernaum, he, his mother, his brothers, and his disciples, and they did not stay there many days. So one thing this miracle also did, it helped his disciples even more see there was something special about him. It helped them kind of rest in him. And we're going to see that that's really what miracles do. There's so many people chasing the miracle. They want the healing or the supernatural, cancellation of debt or whatever they're looking for, but they're missing Jesus. Any miracle you receive in your life or you see, it's pointing to him. It's going to make you grow closer to him. And I've always said this. You shouldn't be chasing the miracle. That's when you're just trying to make God a genie and you don't really have a relationship. You don't really care. You're just wanting what he can do for you. But when you get close to Jesus and you're around him, the miracles are just going to manifest. His glory manifest as you're around him. You get to experience those things and receive those things as you rest in what he's done for you and as you grow that relationship with him. The disciples were with him at the party. They weren't seeking the miracle. The miracle happened as they were there. And again, that did draw them closer to him. And that's what it's supposed to be with us as well. But it shows that they continue there from Capernaum, and then they didn't stay there very long. It says, now the Passover of the Jews was at hand, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem. And he found in the temple those who sold oxen and sheep and doves and the money changers doing business. So they go to Jerusalem, and Jesus goes to the temple. Now, this was God's house. Now, today, God lives in us, but that's what it represented then. And he saw in there all of these people selling oxen, sheep, and doves. There's money changers. They're making money. And here's what was going on. The Jewish people would have to sacrifice animals for their sins. They had to bring a perfect animal to the temple to sacrifice it so they could be forgiven of their sins. Of course, only Jesus could really forgive you, but that was under the law, what they had to do so their position could be reset before God. Well, what was going on, they would get there, and then these people would say, well, your animal's not good enough. You've got to buy one of ours, one of these temple oxen, one of these temple sheep. And they were making money off of that. They were making money off the people, and it really become, the temple had become a place of business, so people could really get paid, so they could get money. Said when Jesus had made a whip of cords, he drove them out of the temple with the sheep and the oxen, and poured out the changers' money and overturned the tables. So Jesus saw this, it infuriated him. He made a whip of cords. Now, I don't think he made a whip not to use it. He made a whip, and he was whipping them out of that temple. He drove all of them out of the temple. He ran all them sheep and oxen they were trying to make money off of. He says he poured all the money out, and he flipped them tables. So this really bothered him. And he said to those who sold doves, take these things away. Do not make my Father's house a house of merchandise. Then his disciples remembered that it was written, zeal for your house has eaten me up. So he run them out of there, and then he said, don't make my Father's house a house of merchandise. I think of that all the time. There's so many places I believe if the money's coming in and it is being used to continue the gospel, that is a good thing. There's nothing wrong with having big buildings and growing and producing the gospel, but there's so many places they're just wanting to bring money in so they can continue making their name bigger. Not really the name of Jesus, but so-and-so church or so-and-so ministry or this or this or this. And it's like a money thing. And to me, that's dangerous. I've always wanted to be real careful with any money coming in. I want any money coming in to help promote the gospel and to help people. That's what it's all about. And sometimes it scares me when you see so much about people just making more money on things. And you know, sometimes I even wonder, should you sell shirts with your name on it and stuff? Now, of course, I do believe if it's going to promote the gospel and keep pushing things out, it is good. But if it's just to promote your local church, I'm afraid that's a bad idea. But now in this case, they were ripping people off. It had nothing to do with God. It was all about them. But I'm gonna tell you that's a no-no. God didn't like it. It showed right here there was a prophecy. It said, "Zeal for your house is eating me up." It shows that God had a zeal for his temple. All right, and it had eaten him up because he knew they weren't doing it right. By the way, today we're the temple of God. Jesus lives in us. He has a zeal for us. He loves us. He's looking for that relationship with us. Hey, he lives in us. The Spirit lives in you, and you need to know he's excited about you. And as you look to Jesus and continue to allow him to manifest inside of you, everything's going to change. He don't want us to abuse ourselves as well. But anyways, that's enough on that. Let's keep going. It says, so the Jews answered and said to him, "What sign do you show to us since you do these things?" Jesus answered and said to them, "Destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up." So the Jews, after he's seen them kind of cleaning the temple out, they say, "Well, what signs do you show us since you're doing these things? What sign do you show us?" Jesus tells them, "Hey, if you destroy this temple, I'll raise it back up in 3 days." Then the Jews said, "Well, it's taken 46 years to build this temple, and will you raise it up in 3 days?" They're saying that, this can't happen. But Jesus, he was speaking of the temple of his body. Again, the Spirit was in him. He was God on earth, manifested on earth. And he was talking about this temple's destroyed, it's going to be raised in 3 days. And that's exactly what happened to Jesus. By the way, today, you're the temple of God. It's not some building you're going to. Again, so many people make these buildings, just this brick and wood and stuff, they make it more important than the people. Some people, they won't have anything else to do with any other ministry. They won't help anything else because they only will help their local place, their building. They only want to grow that area. Again, I believe that's dangerous. We're all in this together. Now, yes, we should be coming. I do believe we come to a local area. God has instituted that. You come to worship together. But that don't mean all our other brothers and sisters out here that they're less than us, because that's wrong. And it seems like you see that a lot. But if you're a believer, all of us together, hey, we're the temple of God. We should all want to build each other up. Again, God has He does have it set up in a way, though, where we do meet. It even talks about certain preachers shouldn't be in other people's areas because there's already a worker there. He's got this set up in areas, but we're still all together in it. We still talk, we still debate things, but overall we're pointing people to Jesus because Jesus is living in us. We're all his temple. So don't get so caught up in this building mentality. These buildings are nothing. You may love that building. Your great-great-grandfather may have built that building, but in the end, the building is nothing. If anything all it is a place where the church gathers. Those buildings are not the church. That was something I've had trouble with forever. That was one of our big points as our ministry started. We was in the house, and we got so many people thinking, it's so weird they're in a house, they're a cult, they're this. I'm like, this is how the early church met. I'm sure they heard some of that stuff, but we were hearing it from other Christians, which is crazy because they don't understand, that they're the temple. Let's move on. It said in 22, therefore, when he had risen from the dead, his disciples remembered that he had said this to them. And they believed the scripture and the word which Jesus has said. So when Jesus did rise after the 3rd day, they remembered, hey, you remember when he told them, you tear this temple up, I'm going to rebuild it in 3 days. By the way, there's an earthquake and that's when the tent split in the real temple. Jesus is the real temple, but in the building temple, and it was showing God has been let loose. He's not just in that building anymore. And he wasn't at this time because he was in Jesus, but many of them wasn't gonna believe in him. Now let's keep going. It says, now when he was in Jerusalem at the Passover during the feast, many believed in his name when they saw the signs which he did. But Jesus did not commit himself to them, because he knew all men, and had no need that anyone should testify of man, for he knew what was in man. So as Jesus was in Jerusalem, it was the Passover time. Again, Passover is when they would remember when Moses brought the Egyptians out. Brought the Israelites out of Egyptian bondage, out of slavery. The angel of death, came. That was one of the last plagues, and they put the blood on the doorpost, and it passed over them. The Passover is a picture of Jesus. By the way, Jesus gave Passover. That he changed it for Christians today. When we partake of communion, we're really taking a Passover meal, but instead of remembering the angel of death passed over us, we're remembering Jesus' blood has forgiven us of sins. Therefore, the wrath of God's not falling on us, just like it didn't on the Israelites during this time. But it was going on here, and many believed his name when they saw the signs which he did. So he was doing miracles during this time. We don't know exactly what they all were. We're going to see some more as we go. But as he did them, it said many believed in his name. So they were hearing Jesus, and they'd see the miracles, and they'd believe in his name. But look what 24 says. But Jesus did not commit himself to them, because he knew all men, and he had no need that anyone should testify of man, for he knew what was in man. So it's showing God really knows our hearts. He knows what's in you. He knows if you want to be around him just for the miracle, or which look, that is part of it. You going from a sinner to a saint, that is a miracle. But he knows there were so many that saw all these miracles and they turned from him. He was nothing. Of course, even the disciples did it as well. That's why grace is so amazing. But he knew a lot of them, they're just hanging around because of what he could do. No matter what it was, they didn't really care about him. They didn't have a heart for him. That's why it said he had no need to testify of man. He is God fixing to do something supernatural for the people. And that goes back to what I was saying at the beginning. You want to have that relationship with him. It shouldn't be all about what he can do for you. Now, does he love you? Yes. Does he want to heal you? Yes. There was that guy. He said, you can heal me if you're willing. He says, I am willing. That's his heart for you. The majority of Jesus' miracles was health. Does he want to help you out of financial trouble? Yes. Is he going to be there for you through persecution? He sure is. Is he going to be there for you through trouble? It's all going to come toward us. But the Bible says no weapon formed against you can prosper. It means you're going to overcome. Jesus said trouble's going to come against you, but he says, take heart. Don't worry about it. I've already overcome the world. We overcome him. Even in death, he says, death, where is your sting? We overcome in Jesus. And the thing is, the more we trust Jesus, and the only way you trust Jesus is to be around him, it's hearing messages of grace. It's actually coming to worship. You ain't coming to worship to as a work to show you're doing something from him. You're coming to grow closer to him. The more you're around him and you're hearing messages, the more you listen to worship music, the more you're getting in the word and you're looking to him, the more you will trust him. And as you're trusting him, you'll see those things in your life. Again, some people, they've made it just a genie. If you'll do this for me, I'll do this for you. That's not how he works. That's law. That's actually the opposite. When you say that, you miss out on so much. The truth is, you say, hey, I know he loves me. I want to be around that person that loves me, that I know wants to bless me. He wants to give to me. Just like if you're dating, you want to be around someone who's giving to you because they love you. Unconditional love, not because you got to do something back, just they love you. And that's how you got to get your relationship with Jesus. You got to see how he loves me. Even in my worst times, he loves me. While I was still a sinner, he died for me. Hey, now we're alive in him. How much more now that he's alive is that grace going to come to us? And we need to see that all the time. He wants good to come to us. But you won't see that if you don't grow that relationship with him. If you're not around him, you think he's not around. When he's there the whole time, but we saw last week, he wants us to come and see. As you're around him, you will see. But you got to be there. And I just encourage all of you to just keep being around him. Keep hearing the word. You ain't got to be me. Find someone who's preaching grace. Don't find someone pointing it to you. He said he didn't come to testify man. It ain't about what we're doing. It's about him. And we want to continue to point to him. Find somebody that's doing that. And if you live in the area, we'd love for you to come join us in person on Sunday mornings. Not to really grow the church, which it'd be nice if it grows. But again, I'm not all about the money changing business. We want you to come so you can grow in your relationship in Jesus. But that's the end of John 2. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you all have a great one.